30 years after the Monitor newspaper printed its first edition, legacy media faces an existential threat, low advertising revenues, cratering sales, and the shift of notoriously fickle audiences. In the past, legacy media ruled the roost as the only platform for advertisement in print form, on the radio or television. However, the internet has opened up every single website, search engine, and social media platform as an opportunity to advertise. Big tech platforms have jumped on this opportunity, making Facebook and Google the biggest competitors of media in terms of advertisement revenue. Algorithm-driven news distribution platforms have reduced market entry costs and widened the market reach for news publishers and readers. At the same time, they separate the role of content editors and curators of news distribution. The latter becomes algorithm-driven, often with a view to maximize traffic and advertising revenue. That weakens the role of trusted editors as quality intermediaries and facilitates the distribution of false and fake news content. The news is read instantly online as the news ecosystem continues to be disruptive. 30 years ago, readers woke up at the crack of dawn to buy the Monitor newspaper about breaking news, including the cabinet reshuffle and the release of student exams, two events that usually provided the largest circulation numbers. Audiences waited with bated breath in the evening for appointment viewership during prime time. However, today, news is read on the cell phone through an algorithm that provides instant updates. This advancement in technology has chalked off circulation numbers and linear viewership. There is also a decline in trust by audiences about the information as digitalization has created a space online for alternative voices, both reliable and unreliable. Today, falsehoods and facts now spread the same way through what experts call an information cascade. Catherine Viner, who is the executive editor of the Guardian newspaper, authored a piece in the long read section of the newspaper titled, "How Technology Disrupted the Truth." She postulated that, and I quote, "The trouble is that the business model of most digital news organizations is based around clicks. News media around the world has reached a fever pitch of frenzied binge publishing in order to scrape up digital advertising pennies and cents. And there is not much advertising to be got. In the first quarter of 2016, 85 cents of every new dollar spent in the US on online advertising went to Google and Facebook that used to go to news publishers." The challenges facing media house executives now is how to create a business model that is able to retain old readers who are moored to the traditional setting and attract younger audiences who have several choices to watch. The Monitor newspaper, as part of the Nation Media Group flagship, has realigned its business model to accelerate its digital transformation in the wake of a slump in sales and legacy advertising during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Digital is the now and the future, and anybody that cares about journalism then has to play in that field. The consumption of the news has changed. There are new platforms that are people using to consume their news, and that's the whole point about NMG investing as heavily as it is doing today, not just in Nairobi, but also in Uganda and Tanzania, in the digital on digital platforms, to ensure that we continue doing what we do best, but in different ways, and drawing our readers and our audiences together to continue benefiting from the products that we produce. That's what informs the whole digital plan. It's a huge calling, it's a huge venture, it requires a lot of investment, not just in terms of money or other resources, but also in terms of people changing their mindsets so that they begin to see that the world has moved on and we need to move on with it.
If we just remember what our mandate is, to be the watchdog of society, then we'll get back into that space. Like, for example, now, you see everyone writing about Karamoja and the hunger in Karamoja, but we're not asking enough questions. How did we get to this space? When the flags were raised, what's the gap between when the flags were raised that there's a hunger crisis coming and what happened, and who should be held responsible for the non-action in between when the flags were raised about the looming disaster in Karamoja and to the point where now people are flagging off food to go to the region. So I think we ought to be doing more, because then it means that the next crisis that happens, again, we're just going to say there's a crisis. But crises don't happen overnight. And so we need to be able to hold our leaders accountable.
Daniel Kalinaki, the General Manager, Editorial, Nation Media Group Uganda, shared his views.
I don't agree that the ultimate objective of journalism is to make money. It is important to be profitable, because you need to be profitable to keep the lights on and to reinvest in the newsrooms. But I think media as an industry has an intrinsic value that goes beyond just making money. It's about holding power accountable, it's about informing people, it's about entertaining, it's about giving a platform for debate, etc., etc.
What the value that you attached to journalism and how journalism transforms society. So in terms of the Monitor going into the next decade, what will make a difference is the kind of changes that they make. There will be a lot of convergence, for instance, newsroom redesign, a lot of collaboration, partnerships with other people to ensure that they find the right resources that will keep them going.
What is going to make us remain relevant is the level of analysis. So for me, in terms of strategy, I would want us as a group to think about our human resources. How are we training them? How are we equipping them to deal with the challenges of transmitting information and understanding the agenda of the different stakeholders that we serve. So I think that's going to be very critical, the human resource that we build. And I read a lot of international newspapers, one of them being the New York Times, and you can see that the depth of analysis of issues has changed.
Right? There was a time when the Monitor, a football match would be played in Mbale, say on a Saturday, and that story would run in the Monitor edition on Wednesday, when the Monitor was a tri-weekly. And it was still news because people at that point did not know what had happened in Mbale with the football match. Today, as soon as the game ends, or even before the game ends, you can find results in real time. So the content, the idea of what is news has to change as well, right? So breaking news has been commodified. If you go to WhatsApp, if you go to Twitter, things happen in real time. There is an endless loop of things that are happening around you and, you know, all over the world. I don't think there is merit in kind of mainstream media houses trying to compete in that space. I think our role is to sit back and explain not what has happened, but why it happened. So there is a need to become more insightful, more analytical, to create a bit more depth.
What then management will need to do to make sure that that pace is maintained is to ensure that there is a lot of investment in terms of upscaling in the newsrooms, so that people have enough resources or knowledge or skills to execute the new forms of journalism that the public requires. The journalism that we do today of he said, she said, is not what is going to define the monitor's future. It is the journalism that people are clamoring for. Long-form journalism, interpretative journalism, it's investigative journalism, and it's journalism that locks their minds, the people's minds, on the big issues of the day.
Caro Beyanga is the head of the Nation Media Group, Uganda's mentorship and partnership desk. She says that the Monitor newspaper, which trailed the technological blaze many years ago by going online, is seeking to leverage these efforts.
One of the things that Daily Monitor is doing is ensuring that it understands its audiences online. Daily Monitor, as has been shared by the founders, was one of the first to get to go online in East Africa and even beyond. So I believe that from the beginning we already knew that this is a place, a platform that we have to start looking up to, start understanding. And we are doing a number of things to get into that space. We are ensuring that we are on the various platforms, whether it's social media, whether it's online in terms of maybe the websites that we have. In various ways, we are looking to make sure that we are on those platforms and also training people to be versatile, to be on those platforms.
It is also considering the idea of monetizing content.
And because we've seen the experience worldwide, even with the best newspapers that are even doing quite well now with subscriptions, it was a long journey. It took years, decades even, for them to get to a place where they realize, okay, now we've gotten the right, the right balance. We know who to ask, we know how much to ask, we know which platforms we can ask them to pay for and which ones we can't. So for me, monetizing is a journey. It's difficult, you're right, it's a journey. We're going to have to keep trying different things. We're going to have to sort of see what is working.
Industry players argue that legacy media, such as the Monitor newspaper, should be able to leverage its truth everyday mantra to reach out to a number of readers in regard to its content on different platforms. Already, the newspaper enjoys the highest online readership. By the end of July 2022, the online paper registered 1.6 million users a month. Building on its reputation and brand, the journalism could leverage on this to offer enterprise, depth and nuance. As social media grapples with fake news and each purveyor on the cyberspace ecosystem having their own set of facts, legacy media, which has more gatekeeping rigors, could offer a product that is trustworthy.
Speaking with the Kenyan election kind of in the background, if you go online, you will see all manner of things, old videos that have been doctored, old pictures that have been doctored. We had the same thing here during the elections. Every time there is kind of a big issue, we see this happening. So what that does is that it increases the premium on the real truth, and credible, self-respecting media houses will invest in making sure that they pursue not just ratings or likes, but they will have a system that allows proper verification of what they put out.
Whatever news we produce is the correct and verified news, so that people can trust us regardless of what happens. So we're going to have to make sure that we keep that trend of sharing the truth every day, that whatever we do has been verified, has been checked, has been confirmed, so that people can believe us. We're also going to have to speak the truth to the wrong information. A lot of the time wrong information comes out and you find that people really actually believe it. So for us, we need to go out there and say, this actually is wrong information. This is what is correct. These numbers are actually wrong. According to the research we've done from the authorities, this is what is right. This was said, but it was a wrong, it was a wrong quote, or this quote was, given to this person, but that's not correct. This quote was actually said by the other person in this context.
It could also have other segments, including explainers, instant fact-checking, and more specialized reporting that encompasses diverse content. The newspaper ought to have engagement to understand the peculiar needs of audience, develop niche products, and ensure that departments work in silos to develop new products for specific audiences. In its early days, the Monitor newspaper's mission was to stay alive and be able to illuminate the dark alleys of our nascent democracy. In the next decade, the newspaper's war theatre has likely shifted. To stay alive, the Monitor must rely on technology as a medium to reach larger, diverse audiences and make smart business choices.
That's why I say Monitor has the unique position of being 30 years old now and having a rich alumni chapter that I don't think they're tapping into. If they could use that to just, because those people are still in Uganda, they're still alive and well, they're still in Nairobi, they are in Tanzania, they are everywhere. And I think because once you have the passion for journalism, you just have it. Some of us have been doing this for decades. Not because it's amazingly paying, but it's because it's what we love to do. So we are scattered all over the world, but we are Monitor alumni, and I think we can use that to mentor, to just talk to the young people, to help them walk in the steps people like Charles Onyango Obo walked. How did they do it?
Probably journalists need to re-examine if the industry has remained too married to old ways of doing things, and see how it can reinvent itself in a new world. You know, we used to write all our stories, and at some point we typed our stories. But now probably you can't. You don't have a space to do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. You don't have an audience for that kind of news. So I think there is need to invest in the journalists, for them want to be basically competent journalists in everything they do. I think the first thing is to be competent, well trained, understand their craft, and be able to report, to write their stories well, or tell them well, whether it's or whatever media they're using, but also to be able to change, to adapt with the new technologies that have come up for telling stories.
However, it should remain committed to its anachronistic values, bold journalism whose fidelity is to the truth.